Hello, this is Ravi. Most of you know me. I'm a Seabrook resident, and my full name is Srinivasan Ravi Kumar, but I go by the short name Ravi. Today we are going to talk about Seabrook town budget and the property taxes. My email address is ravi number 4nh@gmail.com. You read it as Ravi for New Hampshire at gmail.com. Easy to remember. I presented this yesterday at the library, but 40 or so souls braved the cold to come and listen to it. And a lot of uh, those people, as well as others, requested that I do a video version of it. So I'm doing a narrated version of the presentation, and here it is. Well, we all received our property taxes in December, property tax bill from the town of Seabrook, didn't we? And uh, and we were very unpleasantly surprised by how big the hike was. So I looked into the town budget and the recent assessment and so forth, and educated myself as to why this happened. And I captured all of that into this presentation. So I'm here to present this to you, not as a member of the budget committee or the planning board that I'm on, but I'm presenting this today as one of you, a taxpayer. Angela Silva from the town office, she's the Seabrook assessor, helped me with providing me with a lot of the source material and the necessary numbers for me to put together the story. And Michelle Knowles, the Seabrook tax collector, has also helped me quite a bit. Yesterday, when I presented it in the town hall, they both were present and they answered a lot of questions that the 40 or so people braved the cold and came there to listen to it. Um, and that was very helpful. So for this presentation purposes, just know that my goal has been to help you understand the Seabrook town budget and property taxes so that you can do whatever you want to do with that knowledge. So with that, let's go forward. This presentation is in four pieces. First, we will spend some time to understand the town budget. Then we will spend some time understanding the property taxes. Then we talk about what happened to Seabrook property taxes, and then what does it all mean going forward. First, let's talk about the town budget and try to understand it well. Uh, so how is the town budget actually arrived at? We start with last year's budget and add to it the contractual obligations resulting from the contracts that the town has struck with the various unions representing the various employees. And these contracts are multi-year, so they represent a certain percentage raise for people year after year and so forth. So we are obligated to meet that. So that gets to be that gets added to the last year's budget. And then in late summer, the town departments turn in their budget request for the following year to the Board of Selectmen, and often that requests additional funds for the following year. And the Board of Selectmen look at it, they approve or they disapprove or they add or subtract, whatever they do. Then that comes to the budget committee, and the budget committee also does similar things: approve, disapprove, add, subtract, and things like that. Then uh, there's also a number of items that the different departments want to do or the town itself wants to do that require reasonably big dollar amount, and they get represented as warrant articles that are presented for us to vote on. And when whatever gets voted on, you add them up to the other boxes, and that's what creates this year's budget. And once we finish this year, as we are planning for the next year, this year's budget becomes the baseline for the next year's budget. Then contractual obligations again get added to it, and the approved increases to the various department budgets, warrant articles that we vote on, and the new year budget now gets formed. And this repeats year after year. And so, since the contractual obligations and the requested budget increases by the departments or the capital improvements often represented in the warrant articles are always new spending or additional spending, the budget always keeps going up. Okay, part of the challenge is if property taxes keep going up, if the town budget keeps going up, then the property taxes are going to keep going up. So how do we then manage the situation? Well, that's part of the problem. So let's first talk about the town budget. There are three big chunks in here. First is the town department and some minor capital improvement projects portion of the budget, and that pays for the town clerk, town assessor, town tax collector, and the town administration like the town manager and his department and other things. And the town services, the police, fire, Department of Public Works, the water and sanitation, recreation, and things like that. And the second big chunk is the school system, and we have our local schools, elementary and middle schools, and also we participate in the regional high school. That's the Winnicott High School, Northampton, Hampton Falls, Seabrook. 4 communities send our kids to the school, and so we have to pay our share, so our allocation. And there is also school tax that every town pays, which is really the citizens of the town pays. The utilities also pay this, but they pay directly to the state, not through the town. And finally, there is the county tax. So these things make up our town budget altogether. If you want to look at the percentages, everything the town does in terms of operating the town office, town department services, and some minor capital improvements, they're all about 46% of the town budget. 48% of the budget goes to the school system. So as you can see right off the bat, the school system consumes a lot more money than the town operating budget. And the town tax budget is 6%. The county tax, I'm sorry, is 6%. So here is the 46%, and the school is the 48%. County tax is the 6%, and that is the overall 100%. Looking specifically at the 46%, which is the town departments and the minor capital improvement, public safety is the largest portion of the town government budget. Year over year, the contractually obligated raises represent the increase in this portion of the budget. Anything that is significant, significant capital improvement projects like buying a truck or changing out some big infrastructure, things like that represent a lot of dollars, and they are presented to the citizens as warrant articles, and we have to approve or disapprove them. So we already have some direct control over any growth in the Seabrook town budget. Now, this is the 46% of the budget. The school budget, which is the 48%, has two pieces. The first one is the Winnicott High School. There are 1,082 students at the Winnicott High School from the 4 feeder communities. And the registration has been going down, even though the budget itself has been kind of creeping up. That's an interesting thing that we need to think about. 42% of the budget is allocated for instruction, which means teacher salaries, school material, classroom materials, and so forth. The executive administration takes up just as much money as the teachers. 15% of the students, 15% of the 1,082 students, about 160 or so, require individual education plan. These are the special education students, and they consume nearly 50% of all the instructions budget. So one half of the 42% of the Vinakaran school budget goes to the special education students. Within the special education students, about 15 or so require services that are not available in our district, so we send them out to schools outside our district. So we pay for transportation in the schools and so forth, and many times those tuitions for those special education schools are, like 50 and $100,000, and these students cost the students anything from $100,000, $200,000, and tremendous amount of money. But however you feel about it, that's just the way the money is spent. I just want you to know that. So after revenues, these revenues really are the state grant and the money that schools receive from state and other sources. Seabrook gets an allocation. There is a formula that they use based on the total assessed value of the properties in the town as well as the number of students we send. Based on that, they calculate the allocation that comes out to be about $6.279 million in 2021. And that represents 14% of the town budget, and that is inside the 48%. This is for the 290 students that we send from Seabrook to this high school. That averages out to be 21,651 per student. Of course, this is an average. If you are a non-special ed student, this amount will be around 15,000, and if you are a special ed student, this amount may be something like $50,000. So there's a big disparity there, but that's the way things work out. In the local school budget, there are 666 students going to elementary and middle school in Seabrook, and that enrollment is trending down even though the budget is creeping up here as well. The executive administration here actually consumes more money than the money allocated for instruction, which is 44% of the Seabrook school budget. About 15% of the students, once again, in this population of 666, about 100 students or so, are on special education, and they consume nearly 33% of the instruction budget. So 1/3 of the budget is consumed by 1/6 of the students. So after all the revenues, the Seabrook local budget, school budget, is about $14,550,000. It represents 34% of the 48%. Remember that the last one was 14, this is 34, and that is the 48% that you are looking at. This is for the 666 students, and that averages out to be 21,847. And once again, this is just an average across all the students. If you are in special ed, it's a lot more. If you are not in special ed, it's a lot less. The town also has some income. It is from the various permits and registrations they issue. We go to register our cars, get building permits and stuff like that. All this generates some income to the town. We also pay our water and sanitation bills. That's income. And many times, constructions of commercial require police detail and stuff like that, where our police go and fulfill the requirement, but these private companies, they pay us back. So we have some money. Sometimes our police and fire also go and help out the other towns, and that also might provide some income to the town. Also, there are state and local grants, and all this put together represent the town income. Now, there is such a thing called the town warrant amount. That is the money that is really presented to us to vote on in March. And this amount is all of the town budget minus all of the town income. In 2021, this happens to be $42.6 million. And that's a number that's we need to remember. That number was about 10 years ago was in mid 30s, and it has been going up a modest amount every year, in right around 2% or so, and now we are at $42 million, $42.6 million in 2021. Now, the town population has been going up, the school registration has been going down, and some of the changes happened during the year. And budget is a budget. It's something that we think that we are going to need, and the taxes are raised based on that. But sometimes, because of the timing or because of lack of need, some monies may be left over. And just like in any family, when money is left over, we put it in a nice savings account, and that we call it fund balance in the town. And it's good to have that fund balance, because when some unexpected spending spike, some of this money from the savings or fund balance can be used to offset it, so that the taxpayers do not get hit nearly as hard as the spending spike. In fact, that happened in 2021, and we are going to talk about it. But in terms of overall trend, the here you see the y-axis is the millions of dollars, and you see the years along the x-axis. You see the county budget relatively flat. The town administration is, flat with a little bit of an uptick between 2020 and 2021. And the school budget is kind of like a flat or small creep up. That's despite the continuing drop in the school registration. More and more parents are sending the kids to charter schools, parochial schools, or homeschooling. But the budget, still keeps creeping up. If you add those three lines up, you get the lines above called the total tax warrant. The yellow line is exactly where we are, but the blue dotted line is where we might have ended up with if the town had not used some of the savings to offset the uptick in the tax warrant amount. And we'll talk a little bit more about it in the coming slides. One thing that you need to take great comfort in is that the town is doing a very good job in managing the budget increases year over year. And that's a good thing. We look at the tax bills and we feel very unhappy about it, but you should know that the spending by the town is not all from the town hall, or the public safety. Remember, the school systems represent more than a majority share of the town budget. So we need to look at all the places before we say where the requirement for extra budget is coming from. So anyway, in 2021, the town applied $4 million from the fund balance to reduce the tax burden on the citizens. So the budget summary is this: the schools consume most of our tax dollars, and I know that in Seabrook Beach, yesterday I asked for a show of hands in terms of how many people send their kids to schools here, and there was 0 hands going up. That means in Seabrook Beach, we basically pay our taxes, much of which go to the schools, but we don't really get anything out of it. The significant growth items are presented to us for our approval as warrant articles. So if the DPW needs a truck, or if some building needs to be constructed or something like that, they all like a lot of money, and they are presented to us as warrant articles. Sometimes some items are so much money that we spread it out over multiple years, and each year you pay some amount of money to put toward that. And when you read the warrant articles, it'll make it very clear. So not all warrant articles are about just spending that year. Some of them could be approving putting some money away every year for a period of time. So read the warrant articles and really understand what you are voting for. And because we have an opportunity to vote on these things, we do have control over the town budget. Okay, and the only real bad thing that we could do is to not participate and let our voices be heard. So, it's very important that we participate and vote on these things. Let's spend some time understanding the property taxes. The property tax rate is calculated as a ratio of the tax warrant amount that we just talked about and the assessed value of all the properties in town. Tax warrant amount is pretty transparent, very easy to understand. We just talked about it and we vote for it in March every year. And the assessed value of all the properties is the sum of the assessed value of every residential, commercial, industrial, and utility property in town. Some properties, like the town properties, churches, and schools, are exempted from it. A full assessment is done periodically, once every 5 years, as required by the state. And in between those assessments, statistical assessment is done by the town assessor based on the selling and buying happening in specific neighborhoods and building permits and such things, because the town assessor tries to kind of maintain equity across the different property classes as time goes on, and not wait once every 5 years for that to happen. When this assessment is done, the town actually contracts the work out or outsources the work out to some outside professional companies that do that, not just for our town. Many times, many towns do that at the same time, and they not only look at the properties in our town, they also look across multiple towns to kind of do what is called equalization across the different towns, because sometimes, like things such as paying the county tax, all the towns in the county pays, and the county determines how much each town pays based on this town assessed value. And in order to maintain fairness, the equalization is done across the towns, so that some towns are not unfairly taxed. So it's a fairly involved and a serious thing that we do. And these companies, they look at the buying and selling patterns of the different property classes, and based on that, they come up with what is a reasonable market value of the properties, and they turn that information over to the tax assessor's office in town, and she then goes over that information, pushes back on the assessment, if things are not clear or things need to be changed, just like how we would go and argue with her when we think that our property has been unfairly assessed. Then everything settles down into a set of numbers, and that then forms the basis of determining what is the total assessed value of all the properties in the town, as well as the value of every property in the town. So, um, so let's look at some examples to understand how the taxes are calculated. Let's take, for example, a small town with only two properties, property one and property two. One assessed at $200,000, another one assessed at $300,000, and the town needs $10,000 to operate. That's the tax warrant amount. In this case, the assessed value of all the properties in the town would be the sum of the 200,000 and 300,000, that is $500,000. And the property tax rate can be easily calculated using the formula that we just saw. So we divide the 10,000 by the 500,000, and that generates a property tax rate of 0.02, or $20 per $1,000 of assessed value of the property. Now we can take this tax rate and we can calculate the property tax for the first property, which is $20 per thousand for 200,000. That's 20 times 200. That's $4,000. And we can also calculate the tax for the second property, and that would be $6,000. You add the two, that's $10,000 in taxes raised, and that's the money that the town needs in terms of tax warrant to operate. Okay. Let's see in the following year, the town warrant amount increases to $10,500. Now both properties appreciate 20%. So the new value of the property one will be $240,000, and the new value of the second property will be $360,000. And so the total assessed value of all the properties would be 240,000 plus 360,000 would be $600,000. Now we plugged it into the formula for the property tax rate. That'll be 10,500 divided by $600,000, and that is 0.0175 or $17.5 per thousand assessed value. So here the assessment showed appreciation, but the tax rate has actually gone down. Okay, and if you want to analyze it, you can see that the properties appreciated 20%, but then the town tax warrant amount only increased by 5%. So that's why the tax rate has effectively gone down. So you take the tax rate and you calculate the taxes on the first property. That turns out to be $4,200. You apply the $1,750 on $360,000. That produces a tax of $6,300 for the property number two. So the property one saw a $200 increase in property taxes. Property two saw a $300 increase in the property taxes. So there is a proportionality in the increase in the taxes between the two properties based on their assessed value. But you add them up, that comes up with $10,500, which is the tax warrant amount for the town. Now let's take another step and say that the following year, the town tax warrant amount increased to $11,880, and the property 1 and 2 appreciated 20% and 40% respectively. Here now there is an unequal amount, a disproportionate amount of appreciation of the two properties. So the first property now is valued at $288,000. Second property is valued at $504,000. Perhaps maybe the second property was on the beach. Now you calculate the total assessed value of all the properties. That is $792,000. Once again, you take that, you plug it into our famous formula for the property tax rate. So $11,880 divided by $792,000. That works out to be 0.015 or $15 per thousand. Once again, the assessed values went up, the property tax rate actually went down. So the important thing is that the property tax rate doesn't really tell you the whole story. In fact, you could get easily fooled by it. Pay attention to the sheer dollar amount that you are paying in taxes rather than the tax rate. In Rye, tax rate is 9%, but that doesn't mean that the town is running efficiently there. Okay, so the properties are assessed at high prices. That's why the tax rate is low there. So don't pay attention all that much to the tax rate. The important thing is that how much money that you are actually paying out of your pocket. So here we can use this $15 per thousand tax rate, and we can calculate the property taxes for the two properties. First one sees a $120 increase from $4,200 to $4,320, whereas the second one sees a $1,260 increase from $6,300 to $7,560, to provide a total tax raised by the town of $11,880, which is the amount of money the town needs to operate. See, you can see how when the appreciation is disproportionate, the property that disproportionately appreciates higher ends up feeling the bigger portion of the tax increase. Okay, keep this in mind because it is relevant to our discussion going forward. So in summary, the property taxes determine one's share of the town's tax warrant amount. Okay, the town needs a certain amount of money to operate, so every property owner pays, and that is our property tax. When the properties in the town appreciate proportionately, then the tax burden also appreciate, proportionately. It increases proportionately. However, when the properties appreciate disproportionately, higher portion of the tax increase hits the properties that appreciated disproportionately higher. Okay? That's very important to understand. So what happened in Seabrook in 2021? So we entered the year 2021 with the tax rate at $15.97 per thousand, and the assessed value of all the properties in Seabrook at around $2.75 billion. Then we went into our polls in March, and we were in very good mood. We voted for all the requested budget increases, and we voted for about $4.2 million in warrant articles between the town and the school. And so we generously voted for all of them. I think that there were 38 articles or so, if you remember correctly, for the town, and I think that 37 out of 38 passed. And that's a lot of money. In a normal year, the warrant articles would be in the 800,000 to $1 million range. But just last year, it was like about 4 times as much, maybe more than that. And that really hit our property taxes uh, that showed in the bill that we just received. This bill is so big. A full assessment was done as of April 1st. But guess what? Here, the beach properties, 800 of them, saw about 30% increase in the value. 2,800 uptown properties saw about 28% increase in the property value. So if anybody is thinking that the beach is always getting hit with appreciation and taxes, be comforted that the rest of the town residences also saw a significant increase in their assessed value. The commercial and industrial, on the other hand, saw only 4.52%. The utilities saw like a 16% increase. Now, one could ask, why is the commercial only 4.5%? This question came up from the floor yesterday. When we looked into it further, the answer is the following. There was a lot of buying and selling activity when it came to residential sector. And people would put the house up in the market, it would sell within a day or two, typically for more price than the seller was asking for. That didn't happen in the commercial sector. Not first of all, not too many properties changed hand. Second of all, nobody was selling quickly or making more money than they were asking for. So the commercial industrial sector properties did not appreciate anywhere near as much as the residentials did. Okay. Now, um, the whole town appreciated on average 20%. It went from $2.729 billion to 3.275, or an increase of about $500 million in the value of all the properties in town. So the increased spending, a new assessment, if you took all of that, would have resulted in a tax rate of about 14.95 per $1,000. Remember that we entered the year at 15.97, and you could say, hey, 14.95 sounds good. Once again, that's a property tax rate. Don't pay much attention to that because that doesn't really tell you the whole story. At 14.95, our tax bills would have been a lot larger than the tax bills that we just got. What happened in reality was the town applied $4 million from their savings account, the fund budget, to the town budget to reduce the increase in the tax warrant amount. And that now brought the tax rates down to 13.73 per thousand. And even at that, we saw a significant increase in our taxes. So when we recalculated the property taxes using the 13.73 numbers, the 800 properties, the residential properties at the beach, saw about 11.37%. But within the beach precinct, there was still further stratification. More houses along the beach, newer houses, saw significant increase in their assessment, so significant increase in their taxes. Whereas older homes or homes away from the seashore, they saw a little bit less of an appreciation, and as a result, a little bit of a less of a tax increase. The uptown saw about 10% tax increase. See, once again, not too far behind the beach. So the uptown also paid up pretty big. The the utilities paid about 1% more in their property taxes. But the one who really enjoyed the benefit of the new assessment was the commercial industrial sector. They paid 10% less in taxes. Their taxes went down by 10%. Isn't that nice? So Market Basket, Walmart, BJ's, pizza store and bagel store and Wendy's, they all got a tax break. So the disproportionate valuation in 2021 of the property classes shifted a higher proportion of the tax burden from the commercial industrial to the utilities and utilities to the residential properties. That's what happened in 2021. So going forward, what do we do? First thing is that as bad as the tax bills that we just got, keep in mind there are still some headwinds that we are facing. The first is that inflation doesn't seem like it's going to go away anytime soon. That means grocery bills are going to be higher, the gasoline, the fuel oil, everything is going to be higher. That's going to mean we need to provide sufficient cost of living adjustment to our town employees, plus materials. You need asphalt, you need cement, you need oil and gas and diesel for the vehicles, for the police cars and for the Department of Public Works. So all of that is going to mean the town budget will increase. That means our taxes will increase. This continued disproportionate appreciation of the property classes in Seabrook will also mean some sectors are going to get harder with the tax increase than the others. Hopefully, there'll be a reversal of trend that the commercials will get hit more than the residential next time, so they will end up, paying more of the tax increases than the residential. But we'll see. Seabrook Station, which is the power station, has been paying about $12 million in taxes, which is, as you can tell, 12 million out of the 42 million is a big money. But they have been fighting to bring the number down to like $8 million. And if they succeed, who's going to pick up the slack? Or if they go down even further, who's going to pick up the slack? It's you, it's me. So that is something that we may have to be prepared for. These headwinds are real, and there is not so much that we could do anything about. They will all push the property taxes up. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because this is sort of like saying that your house is going to require a new roof 2 years from now. So you may want to start saving money now rather than to buy another car or, buy another piece of jewelry, because you're going to need the money for the new roof. Same way, you need to keep this in mind when you vote for things this year. Because remember, way in the beginning of the presentation, I showed you that the budget for each year becomes the baseline for the budget for the following year. So that is going to keep going up. And if any of these headwinds actually come to materialize, some of them will, that's going to be a significant add. So since we already know these things are coming, you need to do what you need to do with things that are in your control to curtail the increase in the spending. So what is in your control? Well, look here. Voting for increased town budget means that you are going to pay increased property taxes. Voting for increased school budget, you will pay for increased property taxes. Voting for town warrant articles, you'll pay for increased property taxes. Voting for school warrant articles, you will end up paying more in property taxes. But these are at least things that you can control. Okay, we have handle on this. So I'm not saying this is what you should do. You should not vote for these. I'm just saying that understand the relationship between the the what you can do and the town budget, because that's going to all come back to you in terms of property taxes. Okay. So when should you act? Well, the town fiscal year is from the 1st of April to the last day of March. Okay. And we receive tax bills, thankfully, only twice a year, once in December and once in June. And the town departments turn in their budget request for the following year, late summer or so, to the Board of Selectmen, like I said earlier. They go through it, make modification, give it to the budget committee, and then we do our thing. And then once the budget is prepared, it is presented to the town people in a public hearing. So in public hearing, if you participate, I strongly urge that you do. You will be able to see what are the different items in the budget. Okay. Now, there will be a deliberative session in February where you will be able to actually make modifications to the warrant articles if you so choose, and if you have enough number of people to vote on those different things. So, very important uh, session. Then you are going to vote in the elections in March, and that's where there's going to be a ballot, and there's all the warrant articles are going to be presented to you for you to vote up or down, not just for the town, but also for the schools. Okay? Now, based on what we vote for in March, new tax rates are going to be set in the September-October timeframe. That's what happened. Last year, we voted for enormous amount of spending in March. The new tax rates were set in October timeframe or so, last in 2021. And then that went into the calculation of the taxes, property taxes, and that was what in the tax bills that we received in December. Okay, so this cycle repeats. So it's very important that you participate in this process. Go to the public hearing. This year it is scheduled for January the 17th at the in the town hall in the selectmen room in the second floor, and this is Monday at 6:30. Okay, coming Monday at 6:30. So please go there and participate in this. And there is a deliberative session in February. I don't think they have announced the date. Have an eye out for it by checking the town website often. And the elections will be in March, so go vote, vote, vote. Okay, very important. You got to vote. So it is quite critical that you understand, participate, and vote. Because without your vote, you do not have very much control over the town spending. Remember that in the March 2021 election, maybe 850 or 900 people voted for about 9,000 people in Seabrook, which means each person had the power of 10 votes. So if you don't participate in it, then someone else is going to vote for you, and you certainly don't want to let that happen. So you do want to participate and vote. That's all. I'm very glad that you were able to see the slides and get a better understanding of this topic. Thanks a lot. God bless.